Shufra, right? His methods were used in the Second World War to decipher and to break the codes of the Germans in the Enigma, right, which is called the frequency method. But he also, because he was interested in algorithms, he wrote music. Now, when you speak about music, you speak about the musical scales, as-sullam al-musiqi, I'm told you use what we call do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, right? Is that right? Did I say it correctly? All right, some people say yes. Well, it strikes me that this is like dal, ra, mim, fa, sad, lam, si, right? So this is where the connection with Al-Kindi comes. Let's move on. I don't want to carry on in the house, but if you go to school and various other areas, then you'll find similar very exciting inventions which we still use today. Of course, the numerals that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, the Europeans, they call it Arabic numerals, so there's no problem with that, you know. But actually, it's not Arabic numerals, because the Arabs at the time, when the Europeans have taken them, they have taken it from the Indians. So they used to call it al-arqam al-hindiya, the Arabs used to call it the Indian numerals. But they twisted them and changed them, as they are now in North Africa, which is they like the European ones. And we, in this part of the world, and in Iraq and in Persia, we use the Urdu, or the other, the Persian, the other Arabic writing. But have you ever thought of how do we do calculations? In English, you write from left to right, okay? If you are doing it in Arabic, you write it from right to left, okay? Fine. Now, in English, you're writing 1, 2, 3 from left to right. Now, you try to do sums or subtractions, multiply or divide. What do? You start from the right to left. So there wasn't actually time to transfer, and it was just, we're still using the Arabic way of calculation everywhere in the world, right? So let's move on. And of course, algebra and so on. If you go to school, almost every subject there are, I'm not saying that everything, that's not right, it's be ridiculous to claim. What I'm trying to say is that there are things that we use every day that seem to be, they are being important to us, but we don't realize where they come from. And this is something that many people are interested in bringing out, so that people begin to respect each other. And in many subjects. This particular picture here is very exciting. Ali Majar means, Majar is from Hungary. This scientist, Ali, who has drawn the world. Can you look at this map is underneath, and the other map is a satellite image. And look at the date, 1567. Now, was he sitting in the moon when he drew the Earth? Now, he would have used so many maps, thousands of maps, and reading the manuscripts and reading Rahlat Ibn Battuta and all these people to actually write down and make a map like this. It's such a fantastic resemblance of what we know about the world today. Right, now I'm going to move very fast. So in most subjects, in schools, in hospitals, pharmacy, botany, zoology, right, you name it, normal human beings who are interested in finding out about how things work, how animals work, how food works. It's natural that they are, as human beings, they are all like in the West, like in the East and so on. They would be interested in finding out and discover and make use of discovery so that they make an improved living. That's what it is. So we can't ignore it. And so it is obvious that you find in every subject, like dissection here of horses and finding out. They were excellent also in this area. They would know not only about how the horse and what's inside the horse and so on. They would know the genes, the genealogy of the horse, the family of the horse. They'd know the horse comes from this group and this family and from the other family. They would trace the family tree of the horse so that its purity and its genetic is maintained. And this science is still around today. And about birds. Birds were extremely important because they were the postal system. How do you get letters going from Andalusia, from Spain, all the way to China, right, across the Muslim world? They used to use birds, of course horses and so on, but birds were the best and fastest. And that's why Al-Kindi developed the cipher system and the decoding, because when you send your message by a bird, it could fall into the hands of the wrong person. When they read it, they cannot read it. So because the shifra, the key to the cipher, is with the other one who is the one who is going to read it. Right. And then, of course, there's marine. You're here, a wonderful country, fantastic. You have opportunity to become the greatest, industry in the world in marine, in fishing, in marine life, and so on. So it really has, and of course the plants, gardens, and then also, when you come to the skies, attempts to fly, the use of rockets. This guy is actually flying up using a rocket, using gunpowder. It was in the year 1633, in a celebration by Sultan Murad IV, and the guy's name is Lagari Hassan Chalabi. In a celebration, he has put, he went inside a rocket system full of gunpowder underneath, and when it was ignited and it was liftoff, went all the way up to the sky. Then he came down by a parachute in the Bosphorus Sea. He swam to the Sultan and he said to him, "Sir, I bring you greetings from Isa alayhi salam." The other one is, this design here you find in the Smithsonian Institute, which is the first torpedo in the world, designed by Hassan Ramah from Damascus. Again, using gunpowder to propel it and make it to skip over the other subject. Since you are here interested in culture and in science, so I thought I'd bring something very unique, because I've been promised, because I wanted to see this great mosque and design. I have not seen it yet properly. So, because when I saw it on TV, I was really taken. And the mosaics and the design and mosques and these that you see, all the artwork, apparently there is more into it than just looking at it in nice shapes. Recently, research in Princeton and Harvard, they have discovered some crystal structures using nanotechnology ways. They found certain shapes which look very similar to the shapes of these designs, right? And this is a sort of, and they have got these designs here. They have got 10 degrees freedom. That means 10 symmetries. You can move it in 10 ways, and it will stay the same. Now, they are very excited about it. How is it that in these mosques in Central Asia, and some of them are also in Spain, they have these designs? Because these people, they couldn't have possibly known about that. So the solution is that these are actually, you see, all these are all geometrical designs. They are related to solutions of, graphical solutions of algebraic equations. Right? And there's no time here now to explain to you, but those of you who are really interested in maths and so on, and linking maths and art is a wonderful thing. It's like almost a secret science. Now there are many triangles like that. But that brings me close to the end. Before I finish, what excites me is that it's not only just the invention, because invention is invention, but it's the people behind this invention. What kind of people? Why did they do this? And each of them had done an enormous amount of work. What was the drive? Right? And this you get guys, people are blind. We are told that there is a Braille writing. What do you mean Braille writing? Braille writing is very good, but it's not the first time humanity has a way of reading for the blind. Muslims were very good at this. They used to use different principles than dots, the pimples. They used to use actually rolled paper, and put it on certain shapes, and then stick it on the paper, and it becomes raised, and they can read this way and so on. So, such an enormous amount of effort to try to learn and use this kind of technology. Later on, of course, was modified by Braille in France, and we call it Braille writing. Now, this one excites me. It really does. Because when I looked at this man is holding a heavy book and is standing. He's not sitting. Now, you may have different reasons, but I think the only reason I could say is that he was tired of sitting. Right? So he must be reading while walking. And I do that sometimes, because I just can't keep sitting all the time, and it's not healthy. So you have to move and exercise. Like I said today, I need this here because I have to move around because I want to circulate my blood, because my heart is not very good. So, and the way the blood moves in the body is through walking, through movement. Because the heart pumps outward, it does not suck the blood back. You have to bring the blood back to the heart through walking and moving and through all sorts of other, well, that's a different subject. Now, so there is really, it's a story to tell here. What is it that makes these people do so much hard work that it doesn't even have time to have rest and still reading and learning? The only reason I could find, and there are others who support me and they think this is correct, and then that these people were driven by a certain mission in life. They were not driven by market forces like many of us now, that I want to become an engineer so I can get an employment and so I can get some money and so to live, or I want to get a baccalaureate, right, so I can become a marketable person. This is life. I'm not saying anything against it, but what interests me is in those days, of course, later on the word baccalaureate came through education in the universities, and baccalaureate originally is actually from the word Arabic بحق الرواية. So the professor, when he give you a certificate that you finish your training, will give you بحق الرواية. That means you speak on his behalf. That means if I give one of these nice young ladies here and they become my students, and I give you your certificate, I will give you أعطيك بحق الرواية. You can narrate the right of narration on using my name, right? So that's what's called حق الرواية. But that's something I spoke about the night before. I don't want to repeat it. It may come in again tomorrow. But what is it if it is not baccalaureate, if it's not master's, if it's not PhD, if it's not money, right? If it's not trying to show yourself off, what is it that has driven these people? The only thing you can think of really at that time and that atmosphere, the environment is such that these people were driven by their faith. Right? They had a feeling that they were connected, and they feel that to satisfy the Creator, the mission of human beings on earth is to cultivate the earth, إعمار الأرض, right? To improve the earth, to improve the quality of life of people and animals and so on. So this was, I think, the reason why the Muslim civilization had gone exponentially high. I'm sure some of you will say, well, what happened then? Why did it come down? That's a different story. I'm just talking about what made it go up. And you find this, it's men and women, right, who have been able to do that. Now, if you bear with me for a couple of minutes, then I'm going to give you this slide. These people were driven by faith, Iman, right? But Iman is defined in Arabic, Al-Iman ma waqara fil qalb wa saddaqahu al-amal, right? That Iman, faith, is what has entrenched and firmly precipitated in one's heart, but it is manifested through deeds. That's what it is. People, you cannot tell how much is your faith unless you go and test it when you go and do some work. But this work, this deed, is got to be useful deed. So it is العمل الصالح من آمن وعمل صالحا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات الذين آمنوا اركعوا واسجدوا وافعلوا الخير. Unfortunately, in the latter few centuries, hundreds of years, the meaning of Amal al-Salih has changed. The meaning of Amal al-Salih has become slightly narrower. And the narrow meaning is that Amal al-Salih is Amal al-Taqwa, right? Right? Piety, the pious work, the righteous work. What I mean is that you read, if you ask some of our great scholars and mashayikh, because they are interested in building the iman of people, right? They have to strengthen the faith of people. So what they say is that you do more prayers, you do more Quran reading, you do more Qiyamul Layl, stay all night prayers, right? And so on and so on. It's all about increasing your faith, but very little about what you do with this faith. Because in Islam, in those early years, when those great people, men and women, they understood that they are not supposed to be, a Muslim doesn't mean you become a monk. You don't go there and worship God inside, right, a cave or inside a monastery up in the mountain, isolate yourself from everywhere, and you make i'tikaf all your life. You know, that is not what Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, peace be upon him, has done. If he wanted to do that, he could have stayed in Ghar Hira and there all his life. He's come down and lived. And when you live, you get confronted with problems of life, and you get all sorts of, you face problems, and that's the test of your faith. That's then when you're facing real life, then the test of your faith, and your faith can become stronger also. So this equation is extremely important. I think that, as you all know, my friend engineer and many engineers around here and scientists, they say that efficiency, we define efficiency, what is efficiency in Arabic? Huh? Al-intajiyya, right? Al-intajiyya. And you divide the output over the input. Normally, it is less than 100%, right? If you put petrol in the car, you get, say, 100% input. But the amount of work, useful work you get out of that is a small fraction, because there is a lot of waste. So the Amal al-Salih is like movement of the car, and al-Iman is like the petrol in. In those early years, they did not too much really bother about the company that you buy the petrol from, whether it is Sunni, Shafi'i, Hanbali, Hanafi, Ibadi, and so on, right? It's a private thing. You may like Shell, the other person may like BP or Oman or petrol and so on. It's the important thing. The whole society has to get that car on the road and make it work usefully. They did that in those days, and that's why you find not only Muslims were working together, but they were also very closely working with non-Muslims as well. You find great doctors, chemists, scientists, all working in harmony with their Muslim male and female friends to get the Amal al-Salih, right? Okay, I'm now through actually. But this efficiency, I will close in on this one. You know, I was told about a hadith saying of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, one day he asked his companions, he says, do you know who is the bankrupt? Yani, a hadith al-muflis. Who is the muflis? Who is the bankrupt? They said, the one who doesn't have money to give his debts. He said, no. He said, the muflis, the bankrupt, is the one who comes on the day of judgment and stands for accounting his deeds. And Allah, opens his book, and then all these people come and they say, he has taken my money. And another one say, he has backbited me. And the other one say, he has hit me, and all that. But the guy who stands up there has actually done prayers all his life, he has fasted every month of Ramadan, he has went to Hajj and so on. The guy had got a lot of hasanat, a lot of good deeds he's done in his life. But what God does, what Allah does, is take away his good deeds and gives them to all those people whom he owes. And then he runs out. And then he still has no hasanat, there are no good deeds enough in his life to give. There are people still queuing, they want the hasanat, they want to have their, what they call it, their right. And then what Allah does, he takes their bad deeds and give him instead. And then he ends up in the hellfire. So this guy, in my engineering definition, he has a negative efficiency. He has 100% input, salah, so everything, right? Hajj. And then when it comes to muamala, dealing with people, his output is absolutely, negative. Not amal salih, it's amalun fasid. I hope I have not transgressed over my great scholars here in Islam, but I also hope that you have enjoyed my presentation, and thank you very much for inviting me and being so patient in here. Thank you.
Professor, to me, you are a bullet that was shot from the dark era, which was full of light, and you came to revive and uncover the hidden or the missing link. And there is a say that the necessity is a mother of invention. I am sure those days there were a lot of necessity, but where was the mother? Professor today came to heal the complexes of the eastern side, what you call inferior complex, and he came to show that there is a lot that was inherited by the Europeans from the Muslims. And I will quote a verse from the Quran which says, يا معشر الجن والإنس إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان. O assembly of jinn and man, if you are able to pass through heaven and land, pass through, but with authority. This is in Surah Ar-Rahman, verse 33. The authority here is knowledge. The Europeans always say information is power. So the information that was hidden, it has been revived by the professor. So it is bringing back the power and the morale to the Muslims. Tomorrow, inshallah, the professor will be talking about women of science in Muslim heritage role model. So Muslim ladies and gentlemen, you are very much invited to come tomorrow to attend the lecture. And if there are any questions, please, the floor is open. And I do remind everybody again to fill up the questionnaire. Assalamu alaikum. For the book of the 1001 invention, there is a bookshop in city center by the name of Rawaj Al-Muttahida or Rawaj United. And for those ones who are interested, we can give them the number.
Professor Salim, can you tell us how this invention and the research inventions were funded in those days?
Sorry?
How these projects of invention they were funded?
Well, thanks very much. I think I was hoping that our chairman will say that there will be a lecture also on Friday evening. I'm getting exhausted. There is a lecture under the title of Muslim Heritage and Development. R&D, development. And I'm going to be answering that question then. All right?
You can
All right, but I just want to hint to you that the most influential and strategic tool for enhancing this research and development is the awqaf system in the Muslim civilization. Awqaf nowadays are linked by the meaning, the perception of the Muslims that it is about mosques, right? Awqaf and
Endowments.
yes, the endowment system. It's about the masajid, yeah? Awqaf in the early years were about the sajid, not about masajid only. The investment was for the sajid, the development of human beings, that when they become wanting to make sujood, they want a place, then they want mosques. That was the idea. Is it, so many of these institutions, I was going to mention something tomorrow also about, there is one of the waqf which is called waqf al-zawjat al-ghadibat.
That's an interesting one.
Can you imagine? You men, me and you, we cause problems to our women. So these poor women, what do they do? Where do they go? If they speak to their mom, your mother-in-law, you are in trouble because she's going to make her worst, right? And if she goes and speak against you with your father or your mother, she's going to be in trouble because you're going to be angry. So what do they do? They make these places almost like cafes, linked with the hammams, right? They go there, women, they go there and chat, they drink, and then they discover that her problem is actually nothing compared to the other problems. She goes back home, alhamdulillah, and then the problem is solved. So the waqf system was behind a lot of, one time Al-Bayruni rahmatullahi alayh, and he's written about 200 books, huge, like almost encyclopedias. He has predicted the circumference of the earth. Imagine in those days many people think that the earth was flat or things like that, or the earth doesn't move. But he has predicted the circumference of the earth by mathematical, using the stars and trigonometry. And then, he says, I have managed to send an expedition so that they can walk by measuring, pasting, thousands of kilometers to measure the degree of one angle, right? The qaws, one angle, and then we multiply it by 360 degrees, so we get the circumference of the earth. When he compared the two, he found that there's a huge difference between what they have measured and what he has predicted. But he